It's time for the next AOS book and faction to be coming, and that is in the form of the Forces of Chaos, in particular the Slaves to Darkness. And with the Followers of the Dark Gods, there are a few very key, very interesting changes coming, as well as a few significant losses, as we will get into in just a moment. But first up is the changes to the main army rule, which come at present in the form of their Eye of the Gods and the Marks of Chaos. At present, the Eye of the Gods is a rule which allows you to, at the end of any turn, pick a friendly unit that destroyed an enemy this turn, and they get to roll a d6 to get a certain effect from the table. This has now changed quite drastically to be a once per battle ability, and you can pick in your deployment phase a non-unique hero who is the focus of this rule, and they gain Apotheosis points whenever they fight. So you get d3 points when you fight, or potentially up to 2d3 with a certain heroic trait, as well as a bonus extra d3 if they are outside your territory and contesting an objective. So it seems on the face of it that you can get up to 9 Apotheosis points in a single turn if you are super lucky, but what you do with these is that when you get to 8 points, you get a buff, and you can pick one of 2 effects, and they are called your Dark Apotheosis. You can either get an Aura of Chaos, which gives you a very tasty 5-up ward and a heal, which brings you straight back up to your full health straight off the bat, which is really nice. So if you want to keep your hero alive and going that much longer and give them a bit more durability, this is a really good one to go for. Instead, you can opt for Demonhood, and if you do this, you remove your hero and you replace them with a Demon Prince up to 1 inch away from where they were. Now, you do get to keep any artifacts that your hero had, as well as any pledges to chaos, or if they didn't have a pledge, you can pick one for your Demon Prince. So what this does essentially is it gets you a Demon Prince. It's not entirely for free because you do lose your hero, but this can be a huge boost to your output. It really can be a great way to surprise an opponent with a very nasty threat right in front of their lines, and the fact that this is done in any hero phase as well means you can use this to set up a particularly scary charge, or if you are expecting a charge into your hero and you want that extra durability either from being a Demon Prince or from having the 5-up ward, you can use this reactively to get them that extra level of defense. I would say overall it's maybe a bit less good than the old version because you don't get to pick a unit each turn to give a buff to, so as an army-wide bonus it's better, and missing out on giving things like Chosen or Knights +1 to hit or better rend can absolutely be a pain. But for me, this makes it more of a Herohammer style ability. So if you are into that kind of playstyle and you like that kind of playstyle with the Slaves to Darkness, this can be a much more fun and thematic and arguably powerful buff if you want to get that Demon Prince on the board. The other big change is in the previously mentioned pledges. Pledges are a new rule that allows you, once per turn in your hero phase, to pick a Slaves to Darkness unit, and it can be pledged to a certain god, and they get a buff corresponding to your pick. Now, I personally think that this rule will replace the Marks of Chaos, as they are very similar, so if that is the case, it will be less of an army-wide rule like the Marks are, instead letting you supercharge one particular unit each turn. And the examples that they show us today are the Pledge to Khorne and the Pledge to Slaanesh. Now, as you can see, the Khorne Pledge gives your units +1 attacks on their melee weapons, and the Slaanesh one gives you +1 dice to your charge rolls. So they do broadly line up with the current marks. The current Mark of Khorne gives you +1 attack if you've charged, whilst the Mark of Slaanesh gives you +1 to run and charge rolls. So that is why I personally think it is a replacement. They are slightly stronger buffs, but obviously you can only improve one unit at a time each turn, rather than it being this more widespread army buff. So again, perhaps slightly worse if you wanted a bigger, wider effect, but arguably better at making that specific unit or Death Star perform even better on the battlefield. So again, playing into that more Herohammer style gameplay. You also get a way to improve those pledged units further with a returning mechanic, which is the old popular Banners of Chaos. And with this, any infantry or cavalry unit that has a standard bearer can take one of these as a unique enhancement, and you get a nice little buff for the unit. On top of that, if you choose one of the god-specific banners, the unit that gets it also gets the pledged buff. So if you gave a unit of Chaos Knights, for instance, the banner of Screaming Flesh, they would get that buff as well as being pledged to Slaanesh for the bonus dice on charge rolls, meaning your Chaos Knights potentially could be rolling 3d6 for charges and getting +1 attack to their melee weapons on the charge, which would make them a really quite scary threat. The other ones we get shown today are the Undivided option, which is the Dread banner. This just means enemy units can't use commands when they're in combat with your unit, which may not sound like much, but is actually quite fantastic. Being able to automatically turn off things like all-out attack or all-out defense or any other tricks that armies may have, like the Nighthaunt's Discorporate command, is incredibly powerful in 4th edition. And then we also get to see the returning Nurgle banner, which is the Eroding Icon. This has changed to no longer reduce rend like I think it did in 3rd edition, which was very strong. Now it makes it so that the enemy cannot critically hit you. So no more bonus attacks or bonus rend or auto wounding on 6s to hit, which a lot of units in the game do have and do rely on for their damage output. So I do think this is still a very nice buff, and I would say arguably it's more powerful because against stuff that had no rend, the old banner didn't really do anything, whereas anything that has a critical hit ability or bonus is now going to feel much worse into your Nurgle banner units. And I still think it's going to make something like a big blob of Nurgle warriors incredibly difficult to punch through. So there are a few very big changes coming to the Forces of Chaos. Some good, some are a bit iffy, but I do think that overall it seems like the rules are set to make the Slaves to Darkness a bit more Herohammer-y and focused more on buffing a few key specific units over the course of the game, rather than just giving you a slightly weaker but more army-wide set of bonuses, which I know some people won't like, but personally I think it's quite thematic and cool and fun. So I am in general a fan of this, and I think it is going to make Chaos armies feel more like they are being led by really powerful heroes and lords, and having units that are being boosted and buffed over the course of the game by the various gods. The final thing to discuss is there are some things being removed from the new book as well. There is 4 War Scrolls being taken away, and Warhammer community over on Twitter today did confirm it is the War Shrine, the Soul Grinder, and the 2 Lords on Manticore, so the Chaos Lord and the Sorcerer Lord. Now, this isn't super unexpected, in my opinion, to be honest, but it is still a bit of a shame. The Soul Grinder never really felt aligned with fantasy or AOS to me, so I'm not particularly sad about that, and it is still a thing in 40k. But the Manticore Lords, yes, they were starting to show their age. They were from the days of Warhammer Fantasy, if I'm not mistaken, but they were still quite cool models, and I do love Manticores as a fantasy-like monster and beastie, so it is a shame to see them go. The biggest shame for me, though, is the War Shrine. I still really love the War Shrine model. I think it still holds up really well today. And it was also really quite thematic for the Slaves to Darkness, I think. It was this big, nice centerpiece buffing unit that I really think would have played well into things like the Eye of the Gods and that sort of stuff. But alas, they are going. Although I do think that things like the War Shrine and the Manticore Lords, they may still find their feet on the old square bases of the old world. So if you do still want to use them for that, I think they aren't completely gone. But certainly for AOS going forward, it seems like those 4 War Scrolls are being taken away. So it will be a lot harder to use them in your games as this new book comes out. But that is going to be it for today. I am personally cautiously optimistic for the Slaves to Darkness. I think they are going to be a really fun, elite, Herohammer style army to play around with in the new edition. But, as always, what do you make of the new and updated rules? And do you think the pledge system is going to completely replace the Marks of Chaos, or is it going to be in addition to it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.